are upgrading the profile to enable you to go back and view your Season 1 information. So we're wiping it, but we're going to let you go back and still check it out, so what your final placement was and so forth. So it's not going away completely. We're also preserving that matchmaking record. Super important point, right? You're not going to be starting over. You're not going to have to keep playing 5 placement matches all over again and start from scratch. We know how good you are roughly, and so we're going to use that. And you're only going to have to play 1 placement match in any given team or matchmaker in order to get re-ranked and re-slotted into division. The next thing we're announcing here at BlizzCon is we are officially rolling out the Master League. So what the Master League is this is the top 1% to 2% of the overall StarCraft 2 population in your region is going to be put in this really elite league we're calling the Master League. This is the top of Diamond, which is really awesome, about the top 5% of Diamond. And you're going to get your own special league, your own special league icons. And this is really to make it an awesome competitive experience for those people that are really elite at the top. And of course, there's one more league. We are also announcing today the Grand Master League. So this will be the top 200 players in every Battle.net region around the world will be placed in a special elite league that is reserved for only the best and brightest in StarCraft 2. This is a special ladder. Amongst the other privileges that you'll have being in the top 200, the entire world will get to see, everyone in the region will get to see and access this special ladder. So as you guys know, you can pretty much only check out your own stuff right now. Well, everyone playing StarCraft will be able to check out if you are in that top 200. So it will be a totally elite and prestigious area, and you will truly get to call yourself a StarCraft Grandmaster. So the final thing is we're announcing today is that we are happy to announce that we have figured out a way efficiently and quickly to do this. We're going to build featured replays inside of StarCraft 2. So you will be able to, effective come, say, January, February timeframe, you'll be able to go into the news and community area, which many of you guys use today. There will be a new tab off to the left. We'll be able to feature replays, whatever that is, GSL, Game 5, Fruit Dealer, Season 1. You'll be able to click right on that replay. There'll be a little description. Touch that replay. It'll fire right into the game engine. You'll be able to check that whole thing out. You'll be able to command the camera. You'll be able to check out APMs and resource collection, analyze the heck out of that game, and call your buddies on the phone and really get to compare notes and use it to try and improve your StarCraft game. So this is just the beginning of some of the stuff we have planned. We're going to continue to evolve the feature set for StarCraft 2 on Battle.net in the coming months and years, and we're super excited about some of the stuff we have planned. So thank you very much. At that, I'm going to hand it back to Dustin and the rest of the crew. Thank you.
It's been a while, but has anybody in here watched the old StarCraft 2 battle reports that we used to do back in the day? Anybody? All right. We've got up here David Kim, fan of those, big winner of many of those battle reports, and the mighty champion Matt Cooper, who bravely fought it out many times to show off what our game could do. And this is your StarCraft 2 balance team right here. There's a lot of guys around the studio that help us as well and give us a lot of great feedback. But these are the guys that are really at the top of the game in the studio. We just recently had a tournament inside the studio. Like 120 guys participated, and it was these 2 guys in the finals. I'm not going to give up who actually won, but it was best of 5, and they were amazing matches. And we'll try to get those matches out to you guys soon. These guys are just absolutely doing great. I think David may be the top random player in the world at this point. So we've got some real experts up here to try to give you guys a chance to really understand at least what we think are things that a lot of newer players can do to really improve your game. So I want to talk a little bit first about pros and how pros train. There's a lot of pros here at the BlizzCon here today, BlizzCon 2010. And we've seen these guys be playing in tournament matchups all over the place. We've got a great game tonight between Boxer and Fruit Dealer. You guys should definitely check out. But I want to talk about what these guys actually do to get as good as they get. Now, these guys play on ladder like the rest of us, but they also play in custom games quite a bit, and they have sort of a special secret. They've got some sparring partners like a boxer would have, guys that are almost at their skill level but not quite, that they can throw down with to try new strategies, to try new techniques. Not all of us have access to top diamond sparring partners, but if you have guys at your skill level in gold, you can find those guys. You guys can get together, you can try different rushes, try different blocks, try different strategies, and that's what these guys do to really help improve their game. These guys also work really hard. They play 12 plus hours a day to improve their game. I think there's a myth that Starcraft 2 pro players are born. They're not born, they're made. These guys forge themselves with hard work. And the reason I say this, and this is important, is if you suck at Starcraft 2, you can play and get better. That's all these guys did. They practiced. Now, I'm sure there's probably at some point some basic genetics that these guys are a little bit faster than the rest of us normal humans. But there are still things you can do to practice to get to really a strong place in your skill. These guys also focus on one race. They don't bounce around a lot. They pick one race, something that speaks to them, maybe a race that they're naturally good at, having tried all of the races, and they focus on that race and really try to improve their game. And these guys study. When they're not playing, they're studying. They're studying their own replays. They're studying the replays of their opponents. And this is something you can do as well. If it's midnight and you know you're going to lose 3 more games if you play till 1 in the morning, which I do frequently, I would definitely suggest maybe you take a break and watch some of your replays and use that as an opportunity to really study and see what you can do better as a player. So you guys, we contacted a bunch of pros. David sent a bunch of emails, and we got some really great tips for you guys from some of the pros, many of whom are here at Blizzcon today. So Select says, don't stress over losses. Use them to learn your faults, and you got to practice. No pain, no gain. This is great advice. As Greg was saying earlier, the matchmaker is designed to make you go 50-50 with most of your opponents. You are going to lose. Nothing can protect you from this. Get used to it. It's okay. But you've got to keep practicing, you got to keep focused, and don't worry about losing. And a lot of this stuff is psychological advice these guys are giving, but psychology is a huge part of StarCraft. Cooper and I talk frequently about how we go on tilt, how we'll lose a couple of really close games, and then it's a 10-game losing streak to the end of the night. David Kim has better psychological control than either one of us. He's like a machine. That doesn't happen to him. You could be that machine. Try to focus on the psychological aspects. That can be a very effective way to improve your game, and that's what Select is saying. Huck, a great player, says, be a fan of the game and enjoy it. You're here to have fun. Make sure you're 100% committed, and he says, watch Day 9. But for those of you who don't know, Day 9 is a great member of the community that provides a ton of commentary. He does a lot of shoutcasting. He has his own blog. He has all kinds of really great stuff. If you don't like Day 9 when you go see him, don't worry about it. There's lots of great guys, and his advice holds true. Use the community. You guys are out there doing great things with this game. You're analyzing it. You're tearing apart. Check out what other players are saying. It can't help but make you a better player. This is probably one of my favorites. QXC says, if you're not attacking, you're probably losing. Man, I got to tell you, I got this 2 weeks ago, and it's helped me a ton. Now, this is something a lot of new players do. They say, well, I'm a really good turtle player. I like bunkers and siege tanks. You're not going to win playing that way. The bunker is never going to walk across the battlefield and beat up that enemy command center, right? So he's saying, and the other thing he's saying too, which I think is so important, is you really want to force your opponent to be reacting to your moves instead of you reacting to his. And of course, David's pointed out to me many times he's won a bunch of games by being defensive. So don't get too excited. It's not always about the attack. But it is a game of aggression, and it's a game you want to be in control of, not your opponent. Now, DeMuslim says, practice a lot. Watch replays. These are things we've heard before. This is good advice. And copy strategies, if you can, also good advice. And he also says, keep watching and focus on your mistakes. One of the hardest things to do in StarCraft, I think, is to lose a very close game and then go watch the replay. That takes a real man, right? The rest of us would rather just go get a soda, maybe go have a quick raid in WoW or anything else, but look at that game again. But if you can stop and watch that game you just lost, you're going to learn a ton. All right, so now you're ready, right? You're ready to go pro? You got some tips and tricks? This could be you, the ghost of the StarCraft universe. But in reality, you're probably more like this guy. Now, the reason I tell you this is not just to make fun of you. The reason I tell you this is a lot of players will just watch what the pros do and say, well, I can do that, I'm going to do it. Not understanding that the execution that these guys do is so critical to a strategy working. You can't copy the pros, all the time, every time. You should focus on what works for you. And there's lots of people out there who will tell you, well, this unit never works. This strategy can't work. It's easy to block. But that's not always the case, because in addition to you not being as good as the pros, neither are your opponents, right? These guys, they can't block all the things that the pros can do, so you don't have to do actually everything that the pros do. So be creative. Learn what works at your skill level. Learn what works against your opponents and use those things. Look to the pros for inspiration. These guys are incredible players and they're incredibly valuable, but don't get stuck on the fact if you can't execute a Hellion drop, don't worry about it, right? Try something else or try something that you think you can do to run over your opponents, especially that guy that just wants to work a rush. I think you could take him.
Okay, so now let's take a look at all the specifics. What can you do specifically in your games to improve your game? First thing is workers. Always build your workers, and I can't stress this enough. A lot of people ask me how to improve their game by saying, how do I beat this strategy, or how do I counter this unit, such as the Banshee? But when I watch their replays, they always stop building workers around maybe 14 workers to 30 workers. However, if they didn't stop building workers, and if they had 80 workers, they would have a 3 times bigger army, meaning counters don't even matter at that point. You can beat Banshees with even Marines if you have 3 times the army that he has. Second point is poverty. So unlike in real life, it's actually not good to save money in the bank. The reason is because after every game, all that you have saved up is gone. You have to start over in the next game. So rather than saving your money, try to spend it on your military so that you have a bigger army to fight and win more battles in every one of your games. The third point is scaling it up. I don't really see a problem, people having problem with this when they only have one base. For example, if we take Protoss for example, all Protoss players know how to run 4 or 5 gateways off of one base. However, I don't see a lot of players going double the number of production buildings when they get an expansion. So as a general rule, if you have 2 expansions, go 10 gateways. And if you have 3 expansions, go 15. And it's always good to have more production buildings than needed than less, because if you have less and have a 2,000 float, that's 20 less zealots in the battlefield, whereas if you have 2 more gateways on accident, that's only 3 less zealots.
This is all really great advice too, because a lot of players, they'll see what happens up here on stage today, they'll see what somebody like Boxer is capable of, and they'll say, wow, it's all about micro, I want to be able to do that as well. You've really got to hit these basics that David's talking about, or you've really got no hope. Give up on the micro for a while if you have to. Let it go. Let your units be retarded on the battlefield, but focus on what really matters at the basic level of skill. Get your economy booming and make sure you've got the troops necessary so that at the point when you're ready to practice your micro, you've actually got some forces to work with.
So let's take a look at some advanced econ. Gas is the first thing. There's 2 simple ways to build your refineries. One is to incorporate them to your build order. And the second is to just know what strategy you're going to use. A lot of the times, I mean, you should have a strategy prepared before going into a game or even shortly after. And just think, is this strategy that I'm using, does it require a lot of gas or very low gas? If it requires low gas, go for 1 refinery early, versus if it requires high gas, just go for 2 refineries at the start of the game. When to expand matters as well. As with gas, you can also incorporate this to your build order. For example, a lot of Zerg players just take the expansion right at the start of the game, even before making a spawning pool. That's one way to do it, and then another way to do it is just look at how much army the opponent has and build the base defenses needed to block that attack if you were to rush right now, and just throw up the expansion in order to gain an econ advantage. Where to expand is the third point. There's a very simple rule to this. If you have a mobile and fast army, have your expansion spread out throughout the different places of the map so that you can actually use that mobility to your advantage. Whereas if you have a slow army, try to have all your bases as close to each other as possible. And one tip I'd like to give to this is, if you're not playing at the pro level, if you're not a diamond player, maybe you can just sneak an expansion in the middle of nowhere where your enemy probably won't scout that location. And you can actually get away in a lot of the games by doing this with an expansion. So maps also play a great part in terms of strategy. It's important to know not only the different strategies that you can execute per map, but also what your opponents can do as well. So the first map we're going to look at is Steps of War. This map is an example of a map with a very close rush distance. So rush strategies such as the 4-gate, 4-warp gate, all-in push, or even a bailing bust are very popular. So even if you're not a rush type of player, at least take note that your opponents could use these sort of rush strategies against you. So the second map I want to talk about is